of our 2024 Housing 2.0 Thought Leader webinars. And why am I smiling? Well, maybe it's because we're back together again. Or maybe it's because we're in National Smile Month. Either way, go ahead and smile. And I'll trust that you are, since I can't see you. Today, we're going to highlight how systems-built homes are demonstrating that zero energy ready homes can be built cost competitively to industry-leading quality standards. Now, one of those modular companies, Devel, has been impressively getting to zero with a wide array of designs. Joining us today is Brandon Weiss, who is Chief Innovation Officer and co-founder of Devel. He is a pioneer in the green building movement. I've had the honor of knowing him for years, and his expertise is in building high-quality, durable, efficient homes. Brandon has earned many building and design accolades, including the 2013 U.S. Department of Energy Grand Award for Housing Innovation and USGBC's Outstanding Single-Family Project of the Year in 2017. His credentials include Passive House Certified Builder and LEED AP. Now, we have some wonderful sponsors, and it would make them smile if I told you more about them. The first is Schneider Electric, who is driving the digital transformation of modern homes with smart and sustainable energy solutions for ultimate comfort and energy efficiency. Their connected home ecosystem of smart energy management solutions provides digital control of energy use throughout a home, from the grid via their smart electrical panel to their connected wiring devices. This grid-to-plug solution makes it significantly easier to create smart, solar power, and backup power-ready homes, both now and in the future. Panasonic Healthy Indoor Living Solutions is helping builders across the country differentiate themselves with powerful, code-compliant, and cost-effective indoor air quality solutions that provide a safer environment for home buyers. And Jinko Solar is a leading PV module manufacturer and energy storage system integrator. The company has deployed more than 100 gigawatts of their Eagle modules in 160 countries globally, including more than 17 gigawatts right here in the United States. Eagle Storage brings together the best energy storage technology for turnkey hardware and energy storage services. Eagle is a trusted choice for U.S. solar and storage projects. Now, during the course of today's conversation, you can submit questions for Brandon. Simply use the questions box that you're going to find inside the GoToWebinar control panel. I'm going to review those questions and pose those to Brandon after the conversation. Now, who is conducting the conversation, you ask? Well, please welcome my smiling friend and CEO of Green Building Media, Sarah Gutterman.
Hello there. Mike, thank you for the wonderful intro, Brandon. So good to be here with you today. And I want to just first start off with a special thank you to Mary Kessner, our production manager, who is our wizard behind the scenes, and she makes it all happen, as well as to our sponsors. So with that, Brandon, let's dive in. I am always so happy to have the opportunity to talk about offsite prefab modular construction. I am very familiar with Devel, as you know, since I am on your board of directors. So I always like to share that. Devel has just been doing some incredible things over the last 12 months in particular, as you have refined and evolved your processes. But let's kind of start at the beginning. You want to just talk quickly about Devel's journey and some of the lessons and opportunities and challenges that you've experienced over the years, and then just give us a brief overview of where you are today.
Sure. Yeah. Good to see you, Sarah, as always. And thanks for having me on. It's exciting to talk about this and get a wider audience for it. So, yeah, I guess quick background is I was previous to Devel, I was a custom home builder in Chicagoland market focusing on high performance homes. So built, I think, the first several passive house projects, the first NAHB Emerald level project, the first remodeled LEED Platinum project, and registered the first Living Building Challenge residential home in the Chicagoland area. So that was kind of what I was focused and dialed in on. And I realized in the 2016 era that, you know, I wasn't gonna be able to have the carbon impact I wanted to by building homes, I guess, in one market only, and also being a smaller company, building 3, 4, 5 homes a year. Really wanted to scale that and try to solve the bigger problem and make those types of homes available to a wider audience and eventually across the country. And came across my co-founders, Kurt Goodjohn and Chris Goodjohn. They had at the time we met back in late 2016, had sold their previous company and were looking to do something different in the US market. And they feel like what they had started in the modular, and they had understood the manufacturing process, started a factory from scratch, had that experience, thought what I was doing was interesting and focusing really on the healthy home aspect, as well as the energy efficiency and passive house principles and just all electric homes that could be self-powered, all these things we started talking about back in 2016. We ended up designing stuff, like formalizing the company in 2017, and then kind of worked on the radar, did our first project by the end of 2017. That was in Colorado and near Winter Park, which is a great location, and overlooking the Continental Divide. So a great picturesque first project. And then we ended up purchasing a factory in 2018, raised our Series A in 2019, and have been working towards scale since that point. And so, yeah, that's kind of the broad history. But we started with the idea of these all electric homes. At that time, it was before California, or Berkeley in California, had mandated that new homes be all electric and not include natural gas. So we were kind of ahead of the curve on that, as well as including solar and battery in our homes. In California, there's the big duck curve issue with overproduction of solar resources. So unless you can store those, it wasn't doing anything good for the grid. And we wanted to make sure the homes we were producing could be a grid asset and not a liability to the overall grid. So that was kind of the part of the initial genesis, and then packaging that into a really modern design home that was manufactured and with using advanced manufacturing systems, machine learning, and bundling this all together to create and try to solve some of the greatest challenges that we face today. So including housing, health, and climate change.
Indeed.
And so, yeah,
And
where we are today, sorry, the last part of your question just came back to me.
Please, I jumped in. Go ahead.
So yeah, when we started the company, we built the first project was for a client, and then we started looking at some modifications. So we built the next few 3 or 4 homes, I think, as spec homes. So we had bought properties, put them on those lots, and then sold, so we could kind of work through our system on ourselves, and then just the client received the great home on the back end there. And then after that, we started doing direct to consumer. So building homes for clients on their properties that they owned. And that was all through, the Western US, Colorado, California, Utah. And so that's kind of where we've been today. About a year ago, we kind of pivoted from that, and we're looking to scale up using a more partnership model where we can build, 20 to 100 to 1,000 home communities. And so that's what we're focused on now, is finding landowners that don't necessarily want to be developers, but would like a way to exit their property for greatest and best use, or partnering with developers that don't want to be GCs, or maybe they've lost a lot of their trades or subcontractors, or they're just subcontractors are too busy and they can't manage the actual go vertical process, but they can handle some of the infrastructure and titling and that kind of thing. So we want to partner with those types of groups and entities in order to put together larger developments, and our really efficient homes that have the ability to store energy in them. When you bundle these together in a community type of setting, there's just so much more value you can get out of them. So that being for the clients and for everybody involved. So that's kind of where we're at today, and we've been going down that path and have some good deals in the pipeline, and looking to build out that pipeline so we can open some additional manufacturing facilities and start really that scale process. We've been through the product market fit. We've collected data from the projects and feedback from clients, and now we're at that phase that we really know that we can scale this product and start making it reach the masses and really start tackling some of these great problems.
Thanks, Brandon. So let's talk about the promise of offsite construction, which includes everything from waste minimization to quality control to solving some of those labor challenges, certainly not all of them, because when the house is delivered, certainly there's everything from the foundation system to set and stitch, and then hookups of electrical and plumbing and all that. But specifically, just for this question, let's talk about the promise versus the reality of prefab. So what are you actually able to realize in terms of the benefits of offsite construction, again, with respect to things like waste minimization, volume purchasing for reduced pricing, quality control, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. Well, it begins with greater cross control over the whole product or process and product itself, right? So we're able to bake in a lot more value than you could do building it on site because we're doing it in a standard manufacturing process, have work scopes and certain work cells where it's repeatable construction. And now we're also at the phase where we're looking at reduction of options and just trying to standardize and manufacture based upon the feedback and data that we've collected, what we know is a highly sought after product. And so in doing that, yeah, the efficiencies really come into play, and being able to repeat these buildings across our production line, having a trained, skilled work staff that is able to, follow the same work scopes day after day and their same work cells. Waste minimization, totally, we can track all this with inventory tracking, with data collection tools, and ensuring that we're not, I guess, throwing away good materials. At the end of most construction sites or construction jobs, there's a garage that's, half full of leftover this or that either goes to a warehouse somewhere or goes into the garbage. And with ours, obviously building in the same spot, we can just reuse those materials. We really looked at waste with our structure itself too. There was a couple motivations to go down that path, but we use a light gauge steel structural assembly for our homes, and that includes everything from floor structure, wall structure, and ceiling structure. And we are able to produce 90% plus of our structural elements ourselves in-house with one SKU, that being coil light gauge steel, and having 3 machines that can make all the different profiles we need to produce all that structure in-house. So previous to that, we were waiting months and months for open web wood trusses and costing tens of thousands of dollars for that. We've been able to reduce that cost and increase our control of it. And again, with one SKU, that's much more manageable than having, customized SKUs for a certain project that needs this width trusses and this height trusses and things like that. It's just a better, more scalable process. We plug it in there. It makes all the mechanical penetration holes in the machines too. So we don't have to necessarily frame everything up and then go and drill everything to run our electrical through, our plumbing through, our HVAC through. All that's done as these studs or different structural components are being printed out.
And I know that has also reduced the time that is needed to actually create a module in your factory as well, correct?
Yeah, we've consistently since the beginning been able to reduce our cycle on the factory floor, and we continue to have a plan to strive forward to continue to reduce that. That was definitely a big factor in helping us reduce that time. We did some time and motion studies with that too, just to verify that we were going down the right path early on in that. And yeah, the data came back, and we had saved a significant time, labor hours, and just strain on the overall employees, like having these tables where we can frame out these things and the components are printed out, and it's just a matter of piecing them together. They all have a serial number printed on them, and piecing them together and fastening versus having to break out a tape measure and to go to a saw, bend over, cut. Just all these little things add up as you get more predictability, and exactly what work is done, which work cell, and it's not kind of looking for tools and things like that, but really just getting in your cell and going.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about the performance of your homes as well as the carbon footprint. Let's start with carbon footprint, because I know that this is something that you spend a lot of time thinking about. And can you start with the foundational system, the innovative foundational system that I think you actually created and came up with, that we are testing in our demonstration project that we're doing together. It's called Transcend. If anyone's interested, you can go onto our website and look under the nav bar, home and design, for the Transcend project and read all about this incredible prefab home that we've brought here to where we are. But that starts with this really innovative foundational system. So Brandon, can you talk a little bit about that? And then also some of the other things that you have done to reduce the carbon footprint of your homes.
Yeah, so on the foundation system, that was definitely a team effort. I'm not going to take credit for that. It was across all components. That's something that makes Develop special, is that we have all these unique skill sets within one company. So starting from like design, we have great design staff, architects, we have interior designers, we have furniture designers, we have structural engineering. All these components are all under one house, and which makes things more efficient, and being able to collaborate on a project and try to reduce some unnecessary redundancy in some realms, and just be able to really look at what is the goal of a project and be able to achieve that as a team. So for the foundation system on site, there was several things driving that. One is just to make things faster on site. We wanted to produce our own foundation structure that could go and get flat stacked, go to site, and be erected in really less than 2 days. And I think in a lot of cases it could be done in 1 day. All we would need ahead of that is just the poured footing. That's the only concrete. From there, we go up with our system that we can produce with our same structural systems and machinery that we have in our factory. Make those panels, flat stack them, and send them to site, and then send a team, 3 or 4 people, and be able to get those done in like I said, in 2 days. And has the included, waterproofing membrane on it, structural components, and would be ready for modules as early as the day after that set happens. So again, that was to speed up the process, but also save costs. We've looked at different geographies across the Western U.S. where we're focused now, and knew that if we went down this path, we looked at our first version of what was a concrete wall and applying all the insulation on the outside. And then we went to an ICF wall, which we saw some cost savings and some speed increases in. And then looking at this as our new option, which is a prefabricated foundation system that gets sent to site, like I said, that is being done much faster and at a lower cost than both of those previous systems, and gives us the same R value and effectiveness, puts all the insulation on the outside of that foundation system, and again, makes things ready for modules really quickly. So the only site work we really need ahead of that is excavation and that poured footing, and then we can come in and set those foundation walls really quickly. Or, depending on who the partner is, if they have that skill set, they could take these on pretty easily too, and get trained on one project, and then be able to scale out a whole community with it.
Wonderful, thank you. So Brandon, let's talk about the performance of your homes. Again, I know with Transcend, we are net zero energy. We will be net zero carbon because we'll be purchasing carbon offsets to offset the embodied and operational carbon, kind of that last mile on the embodied carbon part. They're healthy, they're designed to be, it's solar plus storage. We have some advanced demand side energy management systems in the Transcend project, but just in general, talk about the performance of your homes, what makes them special and, healthy, resilient, net zero, et cetera.
This may be a long answer, Sarah, but yeah, happy to go down that path.
That's why we're here, my friend.
So yeah, we started again with the notion that we wanted to create, highly efficient, high quality, high performance homes with a great design aesthetic to them. Create a good indoor-outdoor connection from a biophilic design principle, and did some really intense studies to determine what assemblies were going to work well in terms of both mass manufacturing and as well as going across all 7 climate zones in the U.S. We wanted to make sure it worked everywhere, and so that we could really scale the product in every geography. And it was both twofold. It was energy efficiency, yes, but also even more driving the situation was the building science side, like making sure that these assemblies work everywhere without the risk of condensation or interstitial moisture happening and risk of mold, rot, decay, that kind of thing. So we were trying to build these buildings to last, over 100-year life cycles. And so needed a high quality product that wasn't going to have moisture issues. Over 90+% of buildings fail due to some kind of moisture issue or water issue. And so trying to mitigate that as much as possible through really good building science and intense like hygrothermal wall analysis modeling on top of the energy side. And so, yeah, we figured out after looking at, a couple different of our standard floor plans and models across all geographies, and then nailed in on one assembly that was working real well. Since that time, we've changed to this new structure. So now all of our insulation lives on the outside of our air barrier, which is on the outside of our structure. So we don't have any insulation in our cavities. It's all on the outside of our building where it's most effective, and you get the true R value of every inch because you don't have that thermal bypass happening at studs and structural connections. So another part of that is thermal bridge free construction, where we don't have structural members going from inside our conditioned space to outside, and good air tightness control. We have balanced and distributed ventilation throughout our homes, and again, all electric. So all loads are handled by one fuel source, which can be offset completely by solar, especially or only really when you add the battery storage into that element. And then you can use that energy when it's being produced, but also through the whole night and back into the next day. So we call that our self-powered initiative. We wanted our homes to power themselves off of the sun for long duration, be it an outage, or we have done off-grid homes as well, but most of them are grid connected and can also, in the right geographies, be an asset to the grid in that we have excess capacity stored at peak power, so we could backflow that to the grid during those time frames of the day, and reduce the need for kind of the dirtier long-term fuel sources from the grid. And so trying to look at it holistic like that. And yeah, on the building onesie twosie type projects or infill type projects, not as impactful, but we have all that research and data now done. And now that we're doing larger communities, that's really going to come into effect there on that side of it. And so that's like energy efficiency. I can actually share my screen real quick if you'd like. Let me pull this up real quick. Can you see this chart?
Yes.
So this is showing the this is in Reno, Nevada, so not a super cold climate, kind of somewhat mild mixed zone here. And what we're seeing is the orange line is a code built home in this geography, the same exact floor plan. The wall assemblies are changing because we modeled the orange line to be the code built minimum standard, and the blue line is the develop using our standards. So that's over the course of a year. It's an hourly chart on the course of a year, so you can see pretty flat demand curve, which gives us more predictability and much lower energy use than you see these the orange lines here, which tend to spike kind of erratically and isn't as consistent or predictable. And then this bar chart below is showing our home's annual energy use by circuit compared to a code-built home below that. So our home is, in this case, less than half the energy of that home. So that shows the energy efficiency of it. And then this chart here is showing a daily 24-hour chart of code versus Devel, code on the left, Devel home on the right. And you can see this is one day per season. And so here we're looking at top left is March, then we get into June, air conditioning season. Top right, top left is that shoulder season in the fall, and then we have the winter, which off the charts in terms of the code built home versus our home. Again, pretty flat, good looking demand curve there. So that just, I think, better highlights than what I could say, but half the energy use in this climate zone, just using really good building principles, good modeling, and then the quality control side you mentioned as well. And yeah, that's much easier to do in a factory where things, pre-scripted work happens in a certain station and only happens in that station on an everyday basis. So when you know that, and you know kind of what time, how long the work cycles are, your quality control team can get there, inspect things before they get covered up or move on from. And so we have about a 450 point inspection list per module when it goes through the production line, just to make sure it's being built according to plan, things are being built the right way. And it's just something much easier than if it was built on site and having to kind of guess when the crews are done. Usually it's happening by a subcontractor, so maybe communication gaps exist there. And you don't exactly know when the work's done and when the next trade's coming in. It's just kind of a juggling act a little bit. Whereas with what we're doing, it's again more predictability and being able to stay on top of it, and then stop the line if there's something wrong that needs to be fixed before it progresses. So being able to see that stuff early is very helpful.
Thanks, Brandon. Now I've got two more questions for you, and then I'm going to kick it over to Mike, who I know has a handful of questions from the audience. So with prefab, I think some people have this, honestly, misconception that a prefab home is delivered and boom, you have a home, but that's not necessarily the case, because there is work to be done on the job site, obviously prep work, foundation, and then, as I mentioned earlier, once the home is set and stitched, there's a lot of hookup work and even finish work. And so I think it's important for builders and developers, if they're going to, partner with Devel to do these communities, kind of have go in with eyes wide open and really understand what their role is in order to just set expectations accordingly. So, Brandon, what would your advice or input or kind of expectation setting messaging be for builders and developers in particular who might want to purchase prefab homes, whether those are Devel's or someone else's, that really need to understand that there is a process involved. It's not like you're getting rid of the need for all contractors and solving all the labor issues, which I know are so acutely painful right now within the industry in general. So what are your words of advice there?
Yeah, I'd say definitely visit a site by whatever modular company you'd be working with. Go to one of their project sites and see the actual product. Go to the factory and see it being produced so you can understand the intricacies, and maybe, everyone has a different approach. So just understanding what the approach is from different companies. And I think the other part of that advice is just having to understand that, working with a company that's trying to build a lot of homes, there has to be consistency across all the homes in the portfolio, right? So we do things a certain way. That's our way that we've intended is the best in terms of performance, quality, longevity, customer experience, all these things, right? And so we need all of our homes to be the same, though, in terms of these details. So if there's ever an issue in the future, we can look back and we know what was done versus, a lot of contractors have different ideas of how to do certain things. And I think in working with a modular company, it's just important to understand that their details need to override those. And as long as they work from again, a longevity and a building science and a physics perspective, then it's important to adhere to those. And so we've had discussions with some of our site partners in the past, and they had a different way to do something, or they had a different material that they were able to secure locally. And a lot of times we supply the materials up to the job site, but if they were short on something, it's like, hey, we can just do this. And so, you got to slow down for a second. We got to get the right materials and do this the way it's detailed. And a lot of that does fall back onto the company like ourselves, producing a site manual where everything is detailed and documented on what other steps and procedures, how you do each phase of the project. So once the project lands on the foundation on site, we have a step-by-step process that goes through trade by trade or work scope by work scope in order to help them get to that consistency and that end product that Devel expects and that our customer expects from us. And so, yeah, understanding product, understanding the details, and visiting and seeing how these things are done, and ensuring that it's something you're up for would be my advice to anybody that is looking to go down that path or work with a modular company to do a project.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything in your experience with builders and developers that has stood out as something that has historically been a challenge that maybe you've learned some good lessons from, and you now see it as more of an opportunity as opposed to a challenge, something you've solved for that was kind of a big issue in the past?
Yeah, we're continuing to iterate our process to try to streamline that site process and reduce that as much as possible. So to the extent we can have connections living, and really it's a lot of module to module type connections. So there's structural connections that need to be made. We sped that up so that can be completed in a day. Our air sealing and like dry end phase can be completed in one day now. And then again, all of our insulation is on the exterior, so piecing that together. So now we're working through how we can get those pieces kind of prefabricated so they just like fit in perfectly, and it's not having to cut or modify materials, and that has the cladding already attached to it. So that's kind of something we're working on now to try to speed up some of the exterior process. So again, getting that done in less than a week would be great, where the whole exterior of the house is done 100%, and then it's the interior work. When we build a one-story home, all those connections for the mechanicals are all underneath in the crawl space, and we typically leave about a 3-foot crawl space. So bringing those to what we call the marriage line so they can just be pieced together pretty quickly and effectively and cleanly. Something we put more effort into to make sure everything's documented. There's plan pages that show, for an HVAC where those connections are, electric and the plumbing. So all those pipes there's an as-built there where they can just look and say, okay, basically check off these 10 connections and I'm done. And then it's the next trade up type role. So, and then there's some interior with like drywalling at the ceiling and the walls where things come together, and then finishing that flooring and like baseboard type work. But really tried to minimize the extent of the site work, although it does still exist and it will always exist on a multi-module project. But to the effect that it is really well documented and really defined before they get there, so the expectations are known, the materials are known, and the work scope is known. So it just makes everything easier versus showing up on a job site and just kind of the first few hours is just planning and trying to figure stuff out. We're trying to take that part out of the equation.
Gotcha. Okay, so then my last question before Mike takes control back and asks you the handful of questions that have come in already from the audience, and it sounds like there's more coming in. So Brandon, the modular and offsite construction market is more advanced in Asia and in Europe. Here in the US, there have been some challenges just in general for prefab. We've seen Katerra and Vive and some other companies, kind of emerge on the scene quite rapidly and then fizzle out. What does the next iteration of the prefab market look like here in the US? What's kind of, prefab 2.0, so to speak?
Well, we definitely hope it develops is centered to that. And I think at this point where we're at, we've taken learning lessons from all of those. We haven't gone through some of the same steps of some of those other companies and have tried to really focus on our product first, product market fit second. We haven't had to, we've changed things, yes, but haven't made large pivots in terms of product or what type product category we were going after. We started in single family, we're still in single family, but it's not, it's just a matter of doing infill versus development type projects. Really, it wasn't a complete change and departure from one element to the other. And I think, looking at the housing shortage across the country, we know that the production home builders, looking at their annual numbers, and a lot of them are public companies, aren't going to get to solve that equation. We know that even if we scale to our goal of 10 factories over the next 10 years, that we also wouldn't be a solution. It needs to be all these things working together, and it needs to be several companies that can produce offsite. The production home builders will still be doing what they do and building those their homes. And I think as a group, the problem needs to be tackled, and it's definitely a problem worth tackling. And it's just there's space for different types of focuses. So ours is very much on the health, the energy efficiency, the environmental side of it, and trying to deliver a high quality product. And I think some of it too needs to happen with regulations. It's kind of hard to look at building the same product across all climates and across the whole country when there's so many different codes in various cities or municipalities, counties that change, maybe 3 miles from each other. So, there's the HUD for manufactured housing, the HUD code, which is a national and federal standard, and that's allowed those companies to do really well in scale. And they've had success, and they've built that product category for a long time now, and those companies have been in existence for a long time. I think looking at how getting that type of code regulations across the modular industry would be highly powerful in trying to solve and help the companies that are trying to solve this problem really achieve the scale. So that's something that we're really focused on right now too, is how we can get more federalized standard to be able to produce our homes anywhere and everywhere, and with minimal intervention by the local municipalities, because most of our inspections happen in the factory as our homes are being built by third-party verified inspectors that the states count on to go and make sure that things are being built according to the codes. But our homes are all built way above and beyond any of the code standards, and we do build to the factory built, which is the modular code. We build to the HUD code, but we build to our standard when we build to the HUD code. And then we also have built to the ANSI standard for RV park model units, again, using all of our standard assemblies and just incorporating, the requirements of those codes. But really our product supersedes those. So it's achieving the scale and looking at how we do the other regulations is going to be important for the next frontier of Modular 2.0.
Thank you. Great response. Mike, I see you're back on. I'm going to hand it over to you to take over the questioning of Brandon.
Yes, that sounds so sinister. I'm going to question Brandon for a long time. No, I'm just kidding. We have some wonderful questions actually from our audience, and so I know we only have 20 minutes, so we'll get to as many as we can. One of them that came in from Glenn, and you were talking about, we do infill projects. So he was curious if you have any plans to build what he referred to as stackable homes, multi-story, like 4 to 8 story type of projects.
Again, we're really focused on what we're doing and what we have done and we do well, and that is this single family space. Now, that's not to, we are also doing on some upcoming projects townhome or row home type, where it's the same modules stacked and just kind of that firewall between is the only difference, but it's really the same product category. Now, when you go 4 to 8 stories, that's somewhat of a completely different. And we know that eventually that will need to be a solution, especially as we endeavor into mixed use developments and larger developments that need a good variety of product types in there throughout those communities. And so, yeah, we're not there yet, and that's not the focus yet. Really want to tackle this single family issue and then attached kind of multifamily where it still follows the same principles, so we can really achieve the scale in the near term that we're looking for. Okay.
And I think that probably gets to one of the questions I had about that came in about, do you have any designs for multifamily or multi-generational homes? So we'll get past that one.
Yeah, I think keep an eye on our website and those plans. We are finalizing that, like I said, the row home, townhome type attached multifamily, and so look for those updates on our website. Those will be up there in the near future.
Right. I think too, to Royce's question about, are there finished houses to share, definitely check out the Devel website, also the project they're doing with Green Builder Media, and you're going to get to see pictures of some of these finished homes. So you get a sense for what they're offering and just the high quality nature of it.
Mike, I can, if it's looking at just some pictures of completed projects, I can share my screen and just scroll a few shots if that would be helpful.
No, that's fine. And Mary was also nice enough to put a link in the chat to the Devel website that people can click on and check that out as they continue to listen to our conversation. But also, don't click away yet, because Brandon is showing you live here on screen some of the different images that they've got of some of their products. If you don't mind, Brandon, I'm going to go ahead and continue asking you a couple more questions.
Sure. I'll scroll through these slowly here and go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of interest in the foundation aspect of what you've got going on. Multiple people asking questions about it. So let's spend just a couple minutes talking about the foundation. So Sarah, not Sarah you were just talking to, a different Sarah, wanted to know, can you use a slab foundation for your home? Another person asked, what is the basement floor material? So let's start with those two questions, and then we'll go on to a couple more foundation focused questions.
Sure. So can we build on slab? The answer is currently no. We try to keep the interior space of our homes as finished as possible. And when there's multiple modules, those connections between electric, plumbing, HVAC, they need to take place somewhere. And so we've chosen to connect those within the floor structure. And so that takes place down below. In a 2-story home, we do have to have some open areas to make those connections, but we try to put those in areas that aren't in kind of the main spaces of the home. And yeah, what our foundation system gives us about a 3-foot clearance between the bottom of the floor structure and the top of the slab. And so what we have down there is a 2-inch slab, non-structural. It's just to kind of keep things clean, allow maintenance and things like that, and good clean storage for the homes. And then below that is a vapor barrier. And then we have insulation, R10 insulation below that. So, or R10 to R20 insulation below the slab. And so that is kind of the 6th side of our building enclosure. And so it has both a defined air barrier as well as a defined thermal boundary.
Awesome. That's great. And a couple more, like I said, questions on this. Is there anything that you need additional when you're installing the prefab as opposed to a traditional home?
For the foundation or for the home overall?
For the foundation, sorry. Yeah.
For the foundation. No, I mean, really, when we showed up into the first one, it was just a footing designed to the loads of the home and the location of the home, seismic, all that kind of thing taken into account. And then we brought our panel foundation panels out there, and yeah, we brought the connectors, the panels themselves, and it was 100% complete. We didn't really need anything else, some bracing, but that's all stuff that we brought with us on that one.
And speaking of that foundation system, is that your like proprietary system? Is it a third-party system?
It's our proprietary system, yeah. So we produce that in our manufacturing facility using the same machinery that we build our modules with. So just getting more use out of those machines and allowing, again, more scalability and cost control on how we produce our foundation systems.
Okay. And another material question for you. Joyce wanted to know, do you use double or triple glazed windows? And also, she was curious about your patio doors.
Yeah, so the patio doors are European lift and slide, and all of our windows are European tilt turn windows. And that is one of the levers that we changed from climate zone to climate zone is the window glazing unit. So we do both double and triple depending on the climate zone.
Well, you couldn't have built a better segue to my next question, because my friend Kim asks, when you build a repetitive model, it can be challenged by climate zones in the West. Kim was a longtime resident of New Mexico, and he says, hey, out there we had zones 3 to 7. So do you build to the coldest zones, which isn't all that bad for warm zones, to achieve simplified specifications?
Currently, we're building one assembly that works well and is very energy efficient, and compared to, conventional construction or code built construction, still is achieving our self-powered initiative, as well as living up from a building science and a physics perspective to make sure we don't have, like, again, those condensation problems. So yeah, we are building at this point one assembly and have a couple levers like the window glazing units that we can change depending on climate.
Okay. And then I wanted to make sure to put a call out, final call for questions to the audience. We do have another one from Kim. I know you worked on single family. What he was curious about was talking about single family, but on a small subdivision scale. What he was curious about was, if you were to move into that kind of model of small subdivision scale, 50 homes or less, are you as a company exploring anything like grid-tied microgrids?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's definitely a big part of what we're doing. All of our homes do have, as a standard, solar and battery. And so, like I said earlier in the call, extracting more value out of those by having these communities that all have that same asset, the same energy requirements or very low energy requirements, and have abundant energy storage. Yeah, we're definitely looking at microgrid and those interacting with each other, as well as the greater grid outside. Now, the greater grid outside is probably a factor of larger than 20 homes, but just to be able to reduce that generalized, localized peak power demand. But yeah, with 20 home communities, definitely can interact with each other and the grid as a whole. And so microgrid is definitely something done and are focused on doing a lot of in the future.
Okay. Let's keep the topic on energy for just a moment. Joyce wanted to know what is the size of the solar batteries that you all install?
So we have options on anything from 20 kilowatt hours to 80 kilowatt hours.
All right. And then going back to the climate zone question, Glenn wanted to know if you have a product for what he considers the coldest areas of the country.
We do, yep.
Okay.
We've actually built homes in 2 of those places so far, which are like climate zone, is that climate zone 6?
7.
7, yes. Yeah, high altitude, Rocky Mountains.
Yeah. Well, and then you talk about California, and I think they've got climate zones 1 through 16 or something crazy because they've got all these different microclimates.
Yeah, exactly.
I was curious on something. So I'm going to interject a question here, Brandon. Yeah, I think you alluded to it a little bit earlier. We've seen recently some pushback on the decision that HUD has made to move to a more stringent energy code. FHFA, the Fannie and Freddie, basically the agency, is considering going to a more stringent energy code. There's been pushback from the Home Builders Association. What's your take on that whole topic of all this is so cost prohibitive and this is going to price people out of the market, homeowners, price them out of the market? What do you say to that?
I think it's a short-term kind of comment, like when you look at what it means for someone to own a home, it's not just the upfront cost of a home. It is the upfront cost of a home plus the operational cost of a home. And the operational cost of a home happens as long as you own the home. The upfront cost happens once you manage your money, you put the deposit down, get your rate fixed, and that can be fixed for 30 years. But that operational thing happens every year. So, and if we're talking about affordability or for, lower middle income type families, the energy and operational costs of their living and their expenses has a much greater impact on their, compared to their salary or their earnings than it does on a higher wealth individual, right? Because that is a greater proportion of their income. So when you look at operational costs, that's what I would, I guess, push back on, is that building these energy efficient measures is only going to help the operational ownership cost of that home, and people will be able to retain those homes for a long period of time and maintain and manage their homes.
Yeah, no, I
So,
couldn't agree with
the quality thing too. Like there's good unintended consequences, I'd say, of building more energy efficient. You get a quieter home in a lot of elements. Again, if you do it the right way, you create a more durable home that doesn't have some of the issues and maintenance issues associated with building, just standard code type homes. So I think when you look at this from a bigger picture, that case could be made on both sides. Like if you're only looking at upfront costs, of course, there's going to be a little bit of an increase, but what does that do? And when you look at whole ownership, and that's kind of everywhere in the world, most other places in the world, I'll say, look at that cost of ownership versus just upfront cost. And I think it's a very American thing to look at just that upfront cost of a home.
Right. So I want to get to a couple more questions before we run out of time here, Brandon. I had a question going back to materials for a second, and then we're going to go back to costs. Cheryl wanted to know, what is the roofing material that you use, and why did you choose the roof pitch that you did?
So again, our homes are kind of dictated by their performance, and it's not so much, we started with this aesthetic design. It's not saying that this will be it forever. But again, we wanted to try to get a product out there that appeals to the mass market, that people could love and that we could really scale with. And then we could look at different architectural styles as time goes on, but we're really defined by performance and not architectural styles. I'll start by answering it with that. But second to that, we use a TPO membrane on the roof. And yeah, so the slope was dictated just by a modern design aesthetic that we thought works in a lot of places and is kind of timeless architecture. And then the TPO membrane works really well with that good durable material we can do a lot of it in the factory and then cross over the marriage line with it on site. It meets all we can build a Class A fire rated assembly with it. And so, and works well with solar as well. So kind of checked all the boxes there.
Awesome. Wanted to get to two more questions. I think we've got time for two more. Stephen wanted to know, what does the garage product look like? Or is that something separate added on later?
We do create, when we're doing homes, we do make the garages as well. Garages being a larger volume space, typically wider than 16 feet, not something we ship volumetric, but something we prefabricate the wall panels for and the ceiling trusses for in the factory and flat stack those and send them to site, much like the foundation structure. So there's a solution for that. In doing it that way, a little more site built components, but we're not shipping a bunch of air that doesn't have as much value. Like, there's a lot of time involved with doing a kitchen with countertops and cabinets and plumbing connections and electrical and flooring and backsplashes, all these things. So building that in a factory makes all the sense in the world. But when you come to just a garage, it's basically a box with drywall on the inside, or maybe sometimes it doesn't even have an interior cladding like that. There's not as much value baked into it. So flat stacking that and just doing that on site is the solution we do there. A lot of our homes have had detached garages, which works well for air quality but depending on climate zone, there could be a breezeway between that and the house if you still want that disconnected. Or we have built garages attached to homes too. So I think there's examples of both of those in that those slides I was scrolling through earlier.
All right, final question, because it is on the minds of numerous people who have emailed in, is, okay, Brandon, you've got this high quality product, it performs really well, but the American question is, how much more is it than the normal sticks that we've been building with for 150 years?
I don't know, we're back to the upfront cost thing, huh?
Can't escape it, we're still in the US.
That's cost per square foot. Now, we have continued to drive down our costs since we started, and we started with the similar philosophy of Tesla, where they started with the Roadster baked in all the performance, then we're able to do the Model S and then come to Model 3. And they started with the X and then came down to the Y for the SUV side of it. And that's kind of the approach we've taken, where we wanted to make sure we baked in all the performance, the quality things that we wanted to. And then as we were able to, Sarah alluded to this earlier, as we scale, we'll get better buying power and better economy of scale there for our manufacturing partners that we deal with. And so that's one way we've been able to drive cost down. We'll definitely, as we scale up, as we're talking 10 factories, that it will continue to drive down our costs over the future. Just getting more efficient with labor and production and continuing to work through that. Like I said, we're refining some things to help the site costs come together. But yeah, we're continuing to drive that down, and we know we're going to get that to that what we call the missing middle, and where there's a huge demand for homes across the country in every state. This state has 25,000, this state is 100,000 homes short. Across the whole country, there's just a repeating thing we're hearing. So we know we need to get down to that price point, and we're continuing to drive it down, and we've done some great work on that so far, and we'll continue to get there.
Well, I'm being 100% genuine.
I guess if you're interested, reach out, and definitely if you have a development or something, talk to our sales team on that and the number of homes, and we can definitely have more specific cost conversations around that.
Awesome. Well, I'm being 100% genuine to our audience when I say I've known Brandon for quite a while. I know that he's always done quality work, and if I ever look to build a home, I'm certainly going to be looking at what he's got out there, because I know he's got a quality product. So that's nobody's paying me to say that. That's just, I know Brandon. So thank you, Brandon, very much for coming on today. I really do appreciate it. This has been super exciting, insightful. People have had a ton of questions. They've been very engaged. Really do appreciate it. Also want to thank our sponsors as well, Schneider Electric, Panasonic Healthy Indoor Living Solutions, and Jinko Solar for their sponsorships. Now, if you liked what you heard today, then you want to check out the Housing 2.0 program. We have a Series 2 workshops that are coming up. They're not going to start until October 17, so that's quite a ways away. I get it. But this is the kind of stuff that Sam and I talk about in the Housing 2.0 program. Brandon mentioned it earlier. Chris and Kurt Goodjohn, they've gone through the program as well, and we really enjoyed having them in there. So if you want to get some information like this and talk more about these type of topics and these details, please sign up. You can register at greenbuildermedia.com/housing-2.0. Now, our next Thought Leader webinar is going to be on Wednesday, June 12 at our usual start time of 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be talking about getting to zero at the lowest cost with Scott Sanders of Brightleaf Homes. Thanks again for attending, everyone. Until next time, keep smiling. Stay safe.